Hey everybody, I'm Laura and today we're going to talk about frame. So in my last round of Instagram Q&A, there was one question that really stood out. It's a question that I get a whole lot and I felt warranted its own video. Kristen Karina asked, frame, what is it? Do we need it? Or does it make us look like a robot? Connection with a partner. What is too much or not enough? Such a great question. Let's talk about it. But first, thank you people of Patreon for helping to support me and the work that I do and making this video free for everybody in the world, including people like you. If you want to join them, it's a voluntary subscription. The link is in the description. All right, here's the bad news. Frame, like Lindy Hop itself, is very individual and based on personal preferences. Depending on how you hold yourself, some things may be easier and may be harder, and it may change over the course of the dance depending on what you want to do. And here's the crazy thing, even if two people are trying to do the exact same thing, they'll probably feel different because they're different. Not only are they physically different, but they're mentally processing this abstract thing that can only be felt by the processor. So this video isn't going to show you one way, it'll show you my ways, and it'll show you how I change depending on what my partner and I are up to. Yet another disclaimer, this video doesn't take into account one of the most important parts of dancing. It's exploring the concept of frame in isolation from dancing, which, if you're considering an actual dance, is a little impossible. So don't take this as canon, try this on your body and see how it feels and know that it's changeable. First, concerns about being a robot. I get it, especially if you're talking about frame in absence of dancing. As we are in this video, it can be very robotish. I think that's why it's so important to dance while you're dancing. My arms aren't there to serve my leader, they're there for me to dance. And only part of that is following. We'll continue to talk about this issue as the video progresses, but as a first step, you know when your leader doesn't need your hand. Use those moments to really break free. First, my baseline. This is the way I hold myself as a default, and I think about this same stuff whether I'm leading or following. Warning, we're about to get into a stupid amount of detail. First, I think of keeping my arms beside me and my elbows are a little behind me because my forearms are heavy. 2, I think about keeping my body between my arms, aka keeping myself symmetrical. If my arms move to the side, my body moves to the side. Let's talk handhold. I think about hooking my fingers pretty high at my first knuckle. This gives me a little insurance if things get slippery. Even though I'm trying to hold my hand assertively, I'm still trying to hold my partner's unique human hand. So I'm gonna mold my fingers to theirs. I try to keep my lower knuckles and my wrist pretty relaxed. Therefore my hand is a little open at the bottom, so I'm not clamping down on my lead's hand, allowing for a quick escape if necessary. To me, this handhold is nice and secure so I can handle a lot of tension from my partner. But how much tension? Well, enough. Don't overthink it. All partners are different. If you're holding a full growler versus an empty cup, you're naturally going to adjust how much tension you're using to get the job done. And I think it makes sense to default to the minimum needed tension because it doesn't make any sense to roid out when holding an empty cup. Next, notice the difference between maintaining and moving. If we think of our growler empty cup analogy, you can tell the difference between holding it still and moving it. Now apply that to your partner. Even if there's a lot of tension, I'm trying to keep the length of my arm consistent rather than pulling my hand and therefore my lead to me. Leaders, you can of course use this as the difference between a let's hang out here forever feeling and a let's go somewhere feeling. Because of this feeling, if our hands slip or something, my hand pulls to my body, like releasing a rubber band. How much does it pull? You know the answer to that. Hopefully this reduces the feeling of being a robot because my arms aren't in a fixed position. They're animated. Frame during lines. This is when my partner sends me out and brings me back along a straight line. Think swing outs, 6-count passes, sugar pushes, really a lot of stuff. Let's use the side pass as an example. Check out how my arms interact with Brooks. Notice while I'm close to my partner, my arm is pretty close to its baseline. We're in neutral, there's no tension in our hands. Then as I begin to move away, my arm begins to stretch away from my body. As I move again towards my leader, the tension releases and my arm gets closer to me. Which muscle group? I don't care. Use what you got. Check out this super scientific tensionometer for an approximate gauge of how much tension is happening when. Now obviously, the sugar push has an extra component of tension as the partners move towards each other. When does it begin? How much tension is there? Again, it's different with every partner, but it should feel intuitive. As a follow, as soon as I feel something, I try to respond in kind. How quickly does the tension build? Depends on a lot. How crowded is the dance floor? Am I about to do a variation that I need extra room for? How quickly is my leader stopping me? Do we have a lot of time, or is my leader communicating an emergency? Check out these two moves. They start the same, but the move on the left is basic and long. The move on the right is more intricate and short. If you look at where Brooks stops me, you can see I stop much earlier in the intricate move. You can see I don't travel as far, and my arm is much shorter, or my elbow is closer to me. For even more detail, based on where Brooks's foot is in the two videos, you can see his body is in approximately the same place, but his hand placement is very different, meaning his arm is also much shorter. I find this especially helpful on crowded floors. As a lead, if I keep my arm short, but my follow keeps moving away from me, it's harder for me to floor craft safely. Love the ceiling fan camp, so professional. Regardless, the amount of tension increases the farther away from my leader I get. Maybe that's a tight rubber band, maybe that's a loose rubber band, and as the follower, I might nudge that coefficient of stretch up or down depending on what I'm feeling. My goal is a consistent increase that makes sense. For rotational rock steps, I think of them as largely the same. I'm still going down the line, but my body is twisting into my arm. Frame during rotation. Think tuck turns and other redirections. I use this frame to be as responsive as possible during turns, and I'm optimizing for fast, zippy redirections because I love that stuff. When it comes to rotational stuff, I am not very flexible. Some might even say I'm stiff. I'm trying to keep my body and my arms at the exact same angle, 1-to-1 ratio. Quick note, this is a little outside of frame, but it's hard to talk about this stuff in isolation. When it comes to zippy turns, even though I love them, I'm not thinking about doing a zippy turn. I'm thinking about turning as slowly as possible, but I'm easy to persuade. As an example, let's check out two different 6-count tuck turns down the line. In the version on the right, Brooks is asking for a quick tuck and a slower turn. So my rhythm is just step, 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 step. I'm trying to keep my hand with me so I can feel that the tuck changes direction quickly and move my body with my hand. Let's look at the version on the left. In this tuck turn, Brooks is asking for a slow tuck on the first triple step and a zippy turn during the second triple step. My relationship with my hand stays the same. I'm thinking, move slow, follow the hand will tell me what to do. A zippy turn should be obvious. Now let's check out a barrel turn. You can see that the rock step is relatively calm, and then the turn comes after I'm already in motion. Again, it's the same thing. I'm trying to follow my hand and be aware if it changes speed. Something helpful that Brooks is doing is he's accelerating the rotation of the turn while my hand is low. It's possible to change the speed of the turn while the hand is high, it's just a lot harder, and it has to be done pretty well so it doesn't mess up the follow shoulder. Frame during Charleston. Not all Charleston, but especially things like tandem and hacksaws. You'll see a lot of Lindy Hop has a same side of the body relationship. My right arm goes forward, my right leg goes forward. But Charleston has a cross-body relationship, more like walking. My right arm goes forward, my right leg goes backwards. For these kind of movements, I'm trying to be as connected to myself as possible. There's very little tension in our hands. We don't run into the same endpoints we normally run into. I'm not trying to twist my body to feel what I would feel during a tuck turn. I'm trying to do my best solo Charleston. I really need to pay attention to the movement of my hands to feel the timing that my leader is communicating. My body needs to sync up with the movement of my hand, like the tail wagging the dog-ish. Because this connection is about your own dancing and your own movement, it is so far from being a robot. Let's check out a hacksaws variation. Here, I'm really trying to pay attention to the symmetry we talked about at the top of this video. If the middle of my arm swing is traveling forward, I go 2. If it travels backwards, I go 2. It's less obvious because my hands are moving the whole time, but to me there's a distinct feeling when the whole shape of my arm swing travels. No lie, when I first learned hacksaws, I thought it was choreography. I thought it was impossible to be able to feel what my leader was asking. But the more I did it, the more I was able to connect to myself, and now it's just like following everything else, it just uses a little bit of a different frame. I'm also paying attention to my symmetry side to side. If the total of my arm swing starts to face a different direction, I turn my body to face that same direction. And the whole while, there's really not an endpoint feeling. Brooks and I aren't oppositional. It's like we're one unit moving together. So here's the weird thing that I don't really know how to explain. Even though I use my frame differently in different situations, I'm following, so I don't really know what the move is until the moment that I'm in it. And so it's not that I'm turning techniques on and off. All of these things flow from my baseline and hopefully form a consistent way of responding to the world. And that's the key, consistency. Even though my frame behaves differently depending on the situation and my partner, what I'm fundamentally trying to offer my lead is consistency. When I dance with Brooks, I want him to know what to expect. I mean, I might blow his hair back with some amazing variation, but I don't want to be really tight on one turn and then really loose on another turn, or really intense on one endpoint and then really light on another endpoint. I want to lay down something consistent. I am a basketball or a frisbee or a golden snitch, and it doesn't matter which one I choose. But if you're expecting a basketball, because that's what I've been in the past, and you get a golden snitch, that's very difficult to deal with. You're totally unprepared. And by the way, leaders, this consistency business is for you too. If you're generally relaxed and then you tense up, that is a message. But then if nothing happens, that's just noise I tune out. So in conclusion, even something as dry and technical as frame doesn't really have an easy answer in my opinion. But that's one of the things that's so beautiful about Lindy Hop. In so many other dances, you're trying to be this ideal, and how good you are as a dancer is measured by how close you are to that ideal. But here's the thing, that ideal is not you. It's imaginary. Nobody's that ideal. In Lindy Hop, you're trying to be yourself, and nobody knows who that is except for you. Maybe you don't even know who that is. And so that is your job as a dancer, to put in the time to discover who you are and who you want to be through trial and error on the dance floor. So exciting. I hope you had fun and learned a lot. If you did, click like and subscribe and comment and do all that YouTube algorithm stuff. If you like the music, it's the Brooks Prumo Orchestra. You can find a link to it in the description. And half of the money that I get from this YouTube channel goes towards organizations that support African diasporic artists and art, because Lindy Hop is a Black dance, and that's very important to its identity. And the best way to learn how to dance is trial and error on that dance floor.